My house turned to ashes in a matter of minutes. Desperate, I went to my son's door. He looked at his wife and laughed. "Look at this, my mother wanting to live here." Then he said, "There is no room for a burden like you," and closed the door without remorse. Without options, I called the boy I raised as if he were my own son, now the owner of an empire. His helicopter landed in the middle of the smoke, and he said only 3 words, "I'm already here." I am Helen Silva, a former nurse 68 years old, and I never imagined I would see my entire life disappear in less than 10 minutes. The smell came first, that strange chemical aroma that paralyzes the chest. Then came the gray smoke crawling from under my bedroom door. When I opened it, the hallway was an orange inferno. The flames moved as if they had a life of their own, devouring the curtains my mother gave me when I married Arthur 42 years ago. I didn't have time to think. I only managed to grab my embroidered handbag, the one Arthur gave me for our 20th anniversary, with our intertwined initials in gold thread, and ran to the front door. The heat scorched my back. My slippers melted on the floor. Outside, my neighbors were already calling the fire brigade. Maureen Davis hugged me as I trembled, watching the windows explode one by one. Each explosion was a memory dying. There was the album with Robert's baby photos. There the antique piano where my grandmother taught me to play. There the jewels I inherited and planned to leave to my granddaughter. The firefighters arrived 20 minutes later, but it was already too late. The fire had won. "Mrs. Silva," said the commander with that voice that tries to be gentle but carries bad news. "The origin was electrical. The wiring was old. I'm sorry, but it's a total loss." Total loss. 40 years of my life reduced to smoldering debris and 2 cold words. "Did you have insurance?" a younger firefighter asked. I shook my head. I had canceled it 6 months ago. My nurse's pension barely covered food, and the insurance cost £150 a month, which I could no longer afford. I never thought something like this would happen to me. I stood there, my embroidered handbag clutched to my chest, as the dawn painted the ashes of what was my home pink. I had nothing left, no clothes, no documents, no place to sleep that night. And in that moment, with the smoke still burning my lungs, I could only think of one thing: I needed my son. What lay ahead, I couldn't have imagined, even in my worst nightmares. Robert lives only 40 minutes from where my house was, or rather where it used to be. With trembling hands, I dialed his number while Maureen held my arm. The phone rang 5 times before he answered. "Mum, it's 6 o'clock in the morning." His voice sounded annoyed, sleepy. "Son, my house burned down. Everything burned." I could barely speak between sobs. "I have nothing, Robert. I need—" "Wait. What burned down?" There was a silence. "Look, I can't talk now. Victoria and I have an important dinner tonight." "Robert, please, I have nowhere to go." Another silence, longer, colder. "All right, come over. But just for today, understood, just so you can get sorted." Maureen lent me $15 for a cab. The whole way I clung to my embroidered handbag, as if it were the only thing connecting me to the person I was yesterday. The cab driver didn't even charge me the full fare when I told him what happened. There are still good people in this world. Robert's house is in Kensington, an area where mansions have wrought iron gates and gardens that look like they're from a magazine. 3 stories of gray stone, huge windows, 2 latest model SUVs parked out front. My son had gone far working as a financial director in a multinational in the City of London. He earned more in 1 month than I had earned in years. I felt so small standing before that carved wooden door. I rang the doorbell once, twice. Victoria opened it. 35 years old, tall, slim, with that kind of intimidating beauty. She wore a silk dressing gown and her hair was perfectly styled, even though it was barely dawn. She looked me up and down my clothes smelling of smoke, my face smeared with soot, my half-melted slippers, and her mouth twisted into something that wasn't quite a smile. "Helen," she said my name as if it pained her tongue. "Robert told me. How regrettable." She didn't invite me in. She stood there blocking the entrance. "Is Robert in?" I asked. My voice sounded so weak. "He's getting dressed. We have a very busy day." "Victoria, please. I just need a place to stay while—" "Darling," she called indoors without stopping staring at me. "Your mother is here." Robert appeared behind her. My son, the boy I carried in my arms, who I fed with my own milk, who I cared for when he had pneumonia at 5 years old, and the doctors weren't sure he would survive. That boy was now a 42-year-old man in an Italian suit and a watch that cost more than my house. Well, what was my house? Our eyes met, and then something happened that I will never forget. Robert looked at Victoria. She returned the look, and they both laughed. It wasn't a nervous laugh. It was a laugh of mockery, of disbelief, as if my presence at their door was the most absurd joke in the world. "Look at this," Robert said, still with that half-smile. "My mother wanting to live here." The words hit me harder than the heat of the fire. "Robert, Mum." He interrupted me, and his tone was the same he would use with an irritating street vendor. "There is no room for a burden like you. Victoria and I have our lives organized. We can't be looking after situations." Situations, that's what he called my tragedy, a situation. "But son, it's just until I can—" "I'm sorry," he said, but there wasn't a hint of apology in his eyes. "Look for a friend or call social services. They have shelters for people in your condition." Victoria placed her hand on Robert's shoulder, possessive, protective of her territory. "We have engagements, Helen. I'm sure you understand." And then Robert closed the door. He didn't slam it. That would have been almost more honest. No. He closed it slowly, calmly, like someone closing the refrigerator door after seeing there's nothing interesting inside. I stood there on the steps of my son's mansion with the morning sun warming my back and the cold of his rejection freezing my soul. A lady sweeping the sidewalk of the house next door saw me. She quickly looked away, ashamed. She had heard everything, too. I walked back to the street. My legs were shaking, not from fatigue, but from something much worse. The kind of pain that makes you question everything you thought you knew about love, about family, about who you are. And then sitting on the sidewalk in a neighborhood that would never be my home with my embroidered handbag on my lap, and tears I could no longer hold back, I remembered someone. Someone who didn't share my blood, but perhaps shared something more important. I picked up my phone, looked for a number I hadn't dialed in 2 months since his birthday, and with my heart pounding in my throat, I called Santiago. Because if my own son had closed the door in my face, maybe the boy I raised without being mine, who slept on my sofa and ate at my table when no one else wanted him, would still remember what loyalty means. The phone rang 3 times. 4. I thought he wouldn't answer. After all, Santiago was now an important man with companies, with responsibilities. Why would he remember an old lady, Mum Helen? His voice. That voice that 28 years ago was high-pitched and scared was now deep and confident, but still called me Mum. "Santiago, son." My voice failed. "My house burned down. I don't have anything." "Where are you?" His tone changed immediately. Alert, protective. I'm at Robert's house, but he—" "What did Robert do?" The question was sharp as a razor. I couldn't answer, just cried. And in that cry, Santiago understood everything. "Give me your exact location. I'll be there in 90 minutes. Don't move. Are you listening to me, Mum? Don't move from where you are." 90 minutes. He promised 90 minutes, and I knew he would deliver because Santiago always delivered. As I waited sitting on that sidewalk, memories came like waves. Memories of how I met the boy who was now coming to rescue me. It was 1997. I was 40 years old and had just returned from a double shift at the hospital. Arthur was still alive. Robert was 14. We lived in a small but decent house in the Clapham neighborhood of London. Our next-door neighbor was named Estelle, 32, a heroin addict with a 9-year-old son named Santiago, who was always alone. I would see him through the window, a thin boy with huge, sad eyes sitting on his doorstep, waiting for his mother to return. Sometimes he would wait for days. One afternoon I found him crying in the street. His lip was split. "What happened, my boy?" I asked. "My mum's boyfriend said I'm a nuisance. He pushed me." That night I gave him dinner: chicken noodle soup, fresh chips, and a fried egg. He ate 3 plates as if he hadn't eaten in days, which was probably the case. Does your mum know where you are?" Santiago shook his head. "She hasn't been back since the day before yesterday." From that day on, Santiago began knocking on my door. First timidly, then confidently. I would give him breakfast before school, check his homework in the afternoon, and treat his scraped knees. Arthur protested. "Helen, it's not our problem. We have Robert to support." "He's a child, Arthur, a child who has no one." "He already has a mother." Having a mother and having someone who cares for you are two different things. When Santiago turned 11, Estelle disappeared. She simply left one dawn with a drug dealer from a town up north who promised to take her to a better life. She left Santiago a note. "Forgive me, I can't take it anymore. I wanted to adopt him legally." I started the proceedings, but Arthur objected, saying we couldn't afford another child. We argued for weeks. In the end, he never signed the papers. But it didn't matter. Santiago moved into my sofa anyway. He slept there for 5 years until he got a scholarship to secondary school in Cambridge and had to leave. I bought his suitcase, his uniforms, and packed him sandwiches for 2 weeks. "Mom, Helen," he told me the day he left at 16 with tears in his eyes, "when I'm big and I have money, I'm going to buy you a huge house, and I'm going to take care of you the way you took care of me. I don't need huge houses, my boy. I just need you to be happy and never forget where you came from." I hugged him, not knowing that Arthur would die 2 years later of a heart attack, not knowing that Robert would marry Victoria and become someone I didn't recognize, not knowing that thin boy on the sofa would become a man who would build skyscrapers across the city. Santiago studied civil engineering, worked during the day, and studied at night. He graduated with honors. At 25, he opened his first construction company. At 30, he already had government contracts. At 35, he owned 3 property development firms and never stopped visiting me. He never stopped calling me Mom. The sound of the helicopter pulled me out of my memories. Yes, a helicopter landing in the middle of a residential street in Kensington, kicking up dust and leaves, making the neighbors rush to their windows open-mouthed. The blades slowed. The door opened and Santiago stepped out. 37 years old. Tall, broad-shouldered, in an impeccable gray suit, but with a face contorted with worry. He ran to me with the same urgency he ran to my arms when he was a boy and needed refuge. He hugged me tightly, as if he wanted to protect me from the whole world. "I'm already here," he whispered into my hair. "I'm already here, Mom. I'm already here." 3 words, just 3 words that meant everything Robert couldn't say. I cried against his chest as he held me, and in that moment, surrounded by the noise of the helicopter and the perplexed stares of the neighbors, including Robert and Victoria, who had come out of the house when they heard the commotion, I understood something fundamental. Family is not always the blood you share. Sometimes it's the love you choose to give and the love you choose to receive. Santiago helped me into the helicopter. Before getting in, I looked at Robert's house. He was standing there, mouth open, watching his mother be rescued by the boy he had always considered the sofa scrounger. "Let's go, Mum," Santiago said, reaching out his hand. And we left. We literally flew away from that place where my own son had called me a burden. But this was just the beginning, because what I didn't know at that moment was that Santiago wasn't just coming to rescue me. He was coming to give me the opportunity to recover something much more valuable than a house. He was coming to restore my dignity. I had never been in a helicopter. At 68, my first time flying over London was with tears drying on my face and the smell of smoke still clinging to my clothes. Santiago was next to me holding my hand. He didn't say anything during the flight. He didn't need to. His presence was enough. We landed at the heliport of the Dorchester Hotel in Mayfair. A manager was waiting for us with 3 staff members. Santiago must have called during the flight. "Mrs. Silva," the manager bowed in a way that seemed exaggerated to me. "Your suite is ready. We have prepared everything according to Mr. Mendoza's instructions." Suite. Never in my life had I stayed in a hotel suite. Santiago guided me to the lift with his hand on my back. That protective gesture reminded me of when he was little, and I would take him to the doctor, and he would cling to my skirt in fear. The suite was on the 18th floor. When they opened the door, I almost fell backward. It was bigger than my whole house, a living room with huge windows overlooking the entire city. A bedroom with a king-sized bed, a marble bathroom with a jacuzzi tub, a private terrace. There were fresh flowers on every table, a basket with fruit and cheeses, and even a bottle of champagne with a card that read, "Welcome home, Mum Helen." "Son, this is too much," I whispered. "It's the least I can do." His voice trembled with contained emotion. "You gave me a roof when I had nothing. Now it's my turn." I collapsed onto the sofa, not from physical exhaustion, but from pure emotional fatigue. In less than 6 hours, I had lost my home, been rejected by my own son, and was now in a luxury hotel being cared for by the boy who once slept on my sofa. Santiago knelt in front of me, as he used to do when he was little, and wanted to tell me something important. "Listen closely, Mum Helen. I'm going to sort everything out. Tomorrow morning, a doctor will come to examine you. Then we're going to buy you new clothes. And then—" He paused. "Then we'll look for permanent solutions. But today, just for today, I want you to rest, take a long bath, eat well, and know that you are not alone." "Santiago, the cost of this must be £950 a night. And I don't give a damn," he said without batting an eye. "Pardon my language, but it's the truth. You paid much more than that raising me. This isn't even close to the first installment of my debt to you." He stood up and called his assistant, a young woman who appeared with a tablet. "Patricia, please confirm the appointment with Dr. Ramirez for tomorrow at 9, and contact Sonia at Harrods to bring clothing options size." He looked at me. "What size are you, Mum?" "Size 16. But son, you don't need to." "Size 16. He continued without listening to me. "Casual, elegant clothes, comfortable shoes, everything a lady who deserves all the respect in the world needs. Open budget." Patricia quickly wrote everything down. "I also need you to book the best insurance assessor you know. I want him to go to the plot where Mum Helen's house was and give me a full report. Reconstruction costs legal procedures, everything." "Reconstruction?" I asked, incredulous. Santiago turned to me with a soft smile. "Did you think I was going to leave you homeless? Mum, I'm going to rebuild that house for you better than it was, with new safe installations, and this time with insurance that I will pay for the rest of your life." The tears returned, but these were different. They weren't from pain, they were from something I hadn't felt in a long time. Hope. "I can't accept all this." "Yes, you can, and you will." His tone was firm but loving. "Because that's what family does. Real family, not the one that closes the door on you, but the one that opens its arms." He approached and kissed me on the forehead, exactly as I used to do to him when he had nightmares, and I comforted him in the middle of the night. "Rest, Mum. I'll come early tomorrow with fresh coffee and sweet bread from that local bakery in Surrey. You remember the one we used to go to when I was a boy?" "I remember, my son. Of course I remember." Santiago left, but he instructed Patricia that I could order anything from room service without worrying about a thing. I was left alone in that huge suite. I stood in front of the window watching the city light up with the evening lights. From up there, everything seemed small, the problems, the tragedies, even Robert's rejection. My phone vibrated. A message. It was from Robert. "Mum, what was that circus? Since when does Santiago have a helicopter? We need to talk." I read the message 3 times. No apology. No, "Are you okay?" Just curiosity about Santiago's money. I didn't reply, because at that moment, I understood something that hurt me, but also freed me. My son had come looking for me, not out of remorse. He had come out of envy. I took the longest bath of my life. The hot water washed away the smell of smoke, but it couldn't wash away the pain of knowing that the son I bore failed me, while the son I raised saved me. That night, in a bed more comfortable than I had ever slept in, hugging my embroidered handbag, the only thing left of my previous life, I thought of Arthur, how he had opposed adopting Santiago, how he told me we couldn't afford it. "Look where we are now, my love," I whispered in the darkness. It turns out that the boy we couldn't afford is the only one who can afford to take care of me. And for the first time since the fire, I smiled because Santiago's 3 words, "I'm already here," meant more than any elaborate speech. They meant presence, loyalty, unconditional love. the same I gave him when the world turned its back on him. And now, without knowing it yet, I was about to discover how much my life had truly changed. Because Santiago wasn't just coming with helicopters and hotel suites. He was coming with plans. Plans that would put everyone in their rightful place, especially my son Robert and his wife Victoria. The next 5 days in the hotel were surreal, like living someone else's life. A life of someone who deserved to be pampered, cared for, and respected. Santiago kept every promise. He arrived every morning at 8 a.m. with fresh coffee in a thermos and pastries still warm from the oven. He would sit with me on the terrace as the October sun painted the city gold, and we would talk about everything and nothing, just like when he was a teenager, telling me his dreams of building skyscrapers that touched the sky. Dr. Ramirez came and examined me from head to toe. My blood pressure was high from the stress, but nothing serious. She prescribed some tablets to help me sleep and made me promise to eat 3 meals a day. "Your son is very worried about you," she told me as she put away her stethoscope. "He's not my biological son," I clarified, not sure why I felt the need to say it. She looked at me with those wise eyes that only doctors with years of experience have. "Mrs. Silva, I've seen many types of families in my career, and believe me when I say that biology is the least of it. That young man loves you as if he carried you in his own womb. That's what counts." Sonia from Harrods arrived with 3 large suitcases full of clothes, comfortable yet elegant dresses, soft cotton blouses, trousers that fit perfectly, shoes that didn't hurt my bunions, even new lingerie and a silk pajama set that made me feel like a queen. "Mr. Mendoza was very specific," Sonia explained as she organized everything in the wardrobe. "He said, 'I want my mother to feel like the valuable woman she is.' Those were his exact words. The total cost was $500,000. When I saw the receipt, I nearly fainted. Santiago just shrugged. "Mom, I spend more than that on petrol for my SUVs in a month. Please let me do this." But the luxury didn't heal the wound, that deep chasm that had opened in my chest when Robert closed that door. The nights were the worst. When everything was silent and the city slept below, I would lie awake staring at the ceiling, remembering. I remembered when Robert was 7 and fell ill with scarlet fever. I spent 3 nights without sleep by his side, placing cool cloths on his forehead, praying to God not to take him. Arthur was away on business. I was alone with my fear, holding his hand as he writhed with fever. When he got better, he hugged me and said, "Mom, when I grow up, I'm going to take care of you just like you take care of me. I promise." Children's promises so sincere, in the moment so fragile with time. I remembered when he turned 15 and wanted a mountain bike that cost $200. I was earning $1,800 a month as a nurse. Arthur had just lost his job at the factory. We had no spare money. I worked double shifts for 2 months. I pulled all-nighters. My feet ached. I would come home when Robert was already asleep and leave before he woke up. But on his birthday there, it was the bike red and gleaming with a giant bow. His smile that day was worth every callus on my feet. I remembered when he got into a private university. The tuition was a fortune. We didn't have that kind of money. We owned a small plot of land my parents had left me in the Surrey Hills. A piece of land I thought I'd save for my old age to sell if I ever needed it. I sold it for £40,000. It paid for his entire 4 years of university. Robert graduated without a single penny of debt. Meanwhile, I continued to pay rent with no savings, no reserves. When he got his first well-paying job, he came home with flowers. "Mom, this is for everything you've done. Now it's my turn to take care of you." But that turn never came because 2 years later, he met Victoria. Victoria, beautiful, sophisticated, from a wealthy family in Cheshire, the daughter of textile magnates accustomed to the best and most expensive things, to having everything revolve around her. From the beginning, she treated me with condescension, as if I were a quaint but ignorant countrywoman. At family lunches, she would correct my way of speaking. "Helen, one doesn't say me and Robert went, one says Robert and I went," she would tell me with that fake smile. She never called me Mom or even mother-in-law, just Helen, as if we were friends of the same age instead of family. Robert changed gradually. He started to feel ashamed of our humble house when Victoria visited. He would buy expensive wine to impress her and ask me to use the good china, the only china we had. "Mum, could you, I don't know, dress up a bit more when Victoria comes? She's used to a certain style." That sentence hurt me more than any slap. After the wedding, the visits became less frequent. Once a month, then every 2 months, then only at Christmas and on my birthday. And always in a hurry, always with more important engagements, always with Victoria glancing impatiently at her watch. Last year, on my 67th birthday, they didn't even come. Robert sent me a text. "Sorry, Mum. Victoria organized a spa weekend in the Cotswolds, and it's all paid for. I'll make it up to you." He never did. And now, after closing the door in my face at my most vulnerable moment, he was sending me messages, asking about Santiago's helicopter, about his money, about what he could get. One night in the hotel, I broke down. I called Santiago sobbing at 2 a.m. "Mom, what's wrong? Are you okay?" "I can't sleep, son. I keep thinking, what did I do wrong? At what point did I lose my son?" Silence on the other end of the line. "Give me 20 minutes, he said finally. He arrived in his pajamas with a coat thrown over them and his hair disheveled. He was carrying a bag from a pharmacy. "Chamomile tea," he said, showing me the box, "like what you used to make for me when I couldn't sleep." We sat in the suite's living room. He made the tea using the minibar's kettle while I wrapped myself in a blanket. "Mum, Helen, you did nothing wrong." His voice was firm. "You were an extraordinary mother. The problem isn't you. It's that Robert chose the wrong person and let her change him." "But he's my son, Santiago. He came from me. How could he close the door on me like that?" "Because children don't always live up to the love they received." He handed me the tea. "And sometimes those who aren't your children by blood are the ones who best understand the value of what you gave them." He hugged me as I cried on his shoulder. This 37-year-old man, a millionaire owner of an empire, comforting me just as I had comforted him when he was 9 and cried because his mother wouldn't come for him. "I'm going to find something out," he whispered. "Something doesn't add up. Robert was different before he married Victoria. I need to know what's really going on in that house." "What are you going to do?" "I have contacts, Mum, people who owe me favors. Let me do some digging." I didn't quite understand what he meant, but I was so tired, so emotionally drained, that I just nodded. Santiago stayed that night sleeping on the suite sofa, just like in the old days when he slept on my sofa, and I would wake up in the middle of the night to check if he was covered. This time it was me who covered him with a blanket, and I stood watching him sleep, thinking about the miracle of having found a son in the most unexpected place, while the son I expected to always have by my side had become a stranger. But what Santiago was investigating would reveal truths I couldn't even imagine, truths that would explain everything and would turn my pain into something completely different, into indignation, into fury, and finally into reclaimed dignity. 4 days passed before Santiago mentioned the subject again, 4 days in which I noticed he was quieter, more thoughtful. He would arrive with the coffee and pastries, but his mind was elsewhere. "Has something happened, son?" I asked him one morning as we had coffee on the terrace. "I'm waiting for some information." That's all he said. The information arrived on a Friday afternoon. I was watching a soap opera when Santiago entered the suite without knocking. His expression was a mixture of contained fury and deep sadness. "Mum, I need you to see something, and I'm warning you it's going to hurt." He sat next to me on the sofa with his tablet. His hands trembled slightly as he opened a file. "I hired a private investigator, someone discreet, professional. I asked him to find out what was really happening in Robert's house." My stomach clenched. "Santiago, I don't know if I want to." "You need to know, Mom. You need to understand that what he did to you wasn't by chance. It was premeditated." He tapped the screen. An audio recording began to play. It was Victoria's voice, unmistakable, high-pitched, authoritarian. "Robert, I've told you 1,000 times. Your mother is a professional manipulator. She's spent her whole life making you feel guilty to get your money." My son's voice replied, but it sounded weak and secure. "Victoria, don't exaggerate. My mother has never asked me for money directly." "Oh, hasn't she? And what about all the, "Oh son, my pension isn't enough," or "Oh son, my boiler broke"? It's emotional manipulation. She wants you to pay for everything while she plays the victim. But she gave me everything when I was a child. Because it was her obligation, you owe her nothing, Robert. She chose to be a mother. No one forced her. Now that you have money, she wants to live off you like a parasite. My heart stopped. I literally felt it stop beating for a second. Santiago paused the audio, his eyes filled with tears as he looked at me. "There's more, Mom. A lot more." He pressed play again. "Besides, that old woman has been bad-mouthing me to your aunts. She told your Aunt Sonia that I was a gold digger, that I only married you for your money. Are you going to let her slander your wife? My mother said that I can't believe it." "Ask your aunt if you don't believe me. Helen is that type of toxic mother-in-law who wants to control her children forever, but she won't get away with it with me. If you truly love me, you'll set boundaries. You'll choose me over her." Silence on the recording. Then Robert's defeated voice. "You're right. I need to set boundaries." "Good. And when she comes with her next drama, because there's always a drama, don't give her money and don't let her stay here. This is our house, not a shelter for old ladies pretending to be poor." The audio ended. I stared at the blank screen. My mind was trying to process what I had just heard. The lies, the manipulation, the way Victoria had poisoned my son's mind. "Never." My voice came out choked. "I never spoke ill of her to anyone. I never said anything to Sonia or to any aunt. I was always polite to her, even when she treated me with contempt." "I know, Mum. That's why I had that investigated, too. I personally called your sister-in-law Sonia. She confirmed you never had that conversation. Victoria lied blatantly." Santiago swiped the screen. Photographs appeared, receipts, bank statements. "And there's more. Look at this." He showed me Victoria's credit card statements for the last year. An average of £600,000 a month. Spas, expensive restaurants, designer clothes, cosmetic treatments. While she was spending this, you were canceling your home insurance because you couldn't afford £150 a month. The irony was like a knife in my stomach. "And here," Santiago continued, "messages between Victoria and her sister." He read aloud. "I've finally convinced Robert that his mother is a drama queen. Next time she pulls one of her stunts, he won't open the door. This house will finally be just ours. No old biddies getting in the way." The sister's reply. "Well done. Mothers-in-law are parasites. Better she goes to a care home." Victoria. "Not even. Let her sort herself out. Robert belongs to me now." Every word was pure venom. But the worst part wasn't Victoria's venom. It was that Robert had chosen to drink it. "There's one more thing, Mum." Santiago closed the photo folder and looked me directly in the eye. "On the day of the fire, when you called him, there's a record that after hanging up with you, Robert called Victoria. She was at the gym. The investigator spoke to one of the personal trainers who overheard them." "What did they say?" "Robert told her about the fire. Victoria replied, 'Don't you dare let her stay here. Tell her there's no room. Be firm or she'll never leave.' And Robert obeyed." I got up from the sofa. I needed to move, to walk, to do something with all the rage that was starting to boil in my chest. "So it was all planned." I said more to myself than to Santiago. The little laugh, the cruel words, "There is no room for a burden like you," all of it planned. Yes, Victoria programmed him like a machine, and he let her. I stood in front of the window looking at the city. Millions of lights, millions of people, and I felt like the loneliest of all. "You know what hurts the most, Santiago?" My voice was almost a whisper. "It's not that Victoria is cruel. It's that Robert believed her. He's known me for 42 years. He knows my character, my nature, and yet he chose to believe I was a manipulative, lying gold digger." Santiago came up behind me and put his hands on my shoulders. "Because it was easier. It's easier to believe the lies that absolve you of responsibility than to face the truth that requires you to be a better person." I turned to face him. What am I going to do with this? Confront him? Show him the proof? "You could," Santiago said slowly. "But I have a better idea. One that will teach him a lesson he'll never forget. One that will show him exactly who his mother is and who he is." There was something in his eyes, a calculated glint I recognized. It was the same look he had as a teenager when he was planning how to solve some complicated problem. "What are you thinking?" I asked. "Not revenge, Mom. Justice. There's a difference. Revenge seeks to hurt. Justice seeks to balance the scales." He sat down again and pulled me to sit beside him. "Robert and Victoria acted this way because they think you're weak, that you're alone, that you have no options or support. We're going to show them how wrong they are, but not by confronting them directly. That would only put them on the defensive." "Then how—" Santiago smiled. It wasn't a happy smile. It was a smile that was a little bit scary. "We're going to create a situation where they reveal their own true nature, where their greed and hypocrisy are exposed in front of everyone, in front of family, friends, in front of themselves." "I don't understand." "You will, Mom. But I need you to trust me. Do you trust me?" I looked at him. This man who flew in a helicopter to rescue me, who was paying for a £950 a night hotel suite without blinking, who hired investigators to find the truth, who hugged me when I cried at 2 a.m. "With my life, son, I trust you with my life." "Good, because what I'm going to do requires your participation. It will require you to act a little to pretend. Can you do that?" I thought of Robert laughing at me with Victoria. I thought of the lies of the door closing in my face, of 42 years of love being thrown away like rubbish. "I can act," I said, and my voice sounded firmer than I expected. "Teach me what I need to do." Santiago opened a notebook and began to explain his plan. And with every word, every detail he revealed, I felt something in me change. It wasn't just pain. It wasn't just disappointment. It was determination. Because my son needed to learn a lesson I never taught him as a child, that actions have consequences, and a mother's love has limits, especially when that love has never been valued. Before executing Santiago's plan, I needed to return to my neighborhood, to what was left of my house. The insurance assessors, well, the ones Santiago hired since I had no insurance, needed me to be present to evaluate the damage and make an inventory of the losses. Santiago drove me in his SUV, a black Audi Q7 that cost more than all the houses on my street combined. As we turned the corner onto my old road, I felt the air leave my lungs. The rubble was still there. Soot-blackened walls, the skeleton of what was my bedroom. Pieces of my life scattered like rubbish. The fire brigade had cordoned off the area, but onlookers still passed by to stare. I got out of the car, my legs trembling. "All right, Mom." Santiago held my arm. "Yes, son. Just give me a moment." I walked among the debris. I recognized what was left of my grandmother's piano. The melted keys, the charred wood. There was the scorched frame of my wedding photo. There, the remnants of the wardrobe where I kept Robert's first communion suit. All lost. 40 years of memories reduced to ash. "Helen." The voice made me turn. It was Maureen Davis, my lifelong neighbor. She was bustling down the pavement, her kitchen apron still on, and an expression that meant she had fresh gossip. "Oh, Helen, thank goodness you've come. We need to talk." She took my arm with an overly familiar grip. "Maureen, I'm with the assessors now. I can't—" "It's important, love. It's about your son." I felt Santiago stiffen beside me, but I signaled that it was okay. "What about Robert?" Maureen glanced around, ensuring there was a sufficient audience. I recognized 3 other neighbors casually sweeping their front steps, their ears clearly tuned in. "Look, I didn't want to be the one to tell you, but everyone's already talking." She lowered her voice to that fake, confidential tone that actually wants everyone to hear. "The day of the fire, when you took a cab to Robert's house." "Yes." "Well, I was watering my petunias out front, wasn't I? And I saw when you arrived." My stomach twisted. Of course she had seen me. Maureen lived to watch the lives of others. "I saw when you rang the bell. I saw when that daughter-in-law of yours opened the door with that look of disgust on her face. And I heard," she dramatically made the sign of the cross, "I heard when your son closed the door in your face, his own mother on the very day her house burned down." The other neighbors sidled closer, feigning surprise, though it was obvious Maureen had already told them the story 1,000 times. "I couldn't believe it," Maureen continued. "I said to my friend Brenda, Did you see that? Did you see how Helen's boy left her in the street? It's just not right, woman, after everything you did for that lad." "Maureen, this is a private matter." I tried to quiet her. "Private? Oh, love, it's the talk of the neighborhood. Even Mr. Patel at the corner shop is talking about it." The shame rose up my neck. Not shame for what happened, but shame that everyone knew that I was the neighborhood gossip, the poor old woman rejected by her own son. And that's not all. Maureen was in her element. Turns out the next day Robert came here. Yes, came to look at the rubble. And when Mr. Patel asked after you, do you know what he said? I didn't want to know, but Maureen didn't wait for my answer. He said you were being very dramatic, that he had offered you money for a hotel, but you refused because you wanted to stay at his house to manipulate him. Those were his words, manipulate him. Tears stung my eyes, not of sadness, of rage, pure rage. "That's a lie." My voice came out stronger than I expected. "Robert never offered me anything, not a single pound, not one night, nothing." "Of course it's a lie, love. All of us who know you're not a manipulator, but you know what people are like. Some of them believed him. They're going around saying you exaggerate your problems to get money out of your son." Mrs. Higgins, another neighbor, came closer, shaking her head. "I didn't believe it for a second, Helen, love. I told them. That woman worked double shifts for years to put that ungrateful boy through university, and this is how he repays her." "And that wife," Maureen added with a sneer, "the posh one, Victoria. Turns out she came by 2 days ago, too. Pulled up in her £500,000 SUV with her designer sunglasses. And when Mrs. Gable asked if she was checking on you, do you know what she replied?" I closed my eyes. I didn't want to hear anymore, but the words kept coming like daggers. She said, "Helen is perfectly fine. She's always known how to look after herself. She doesn't need anyone to support her." And she laughed. She laughed, Helen, as if it were a joke. Santiago took a step forward. His jaw was so tight I could see the muscle pulse. "Ladies, with all due respect, my mother Helen is going through a very difficult time. I don't think she needs to be hearing gossip right now." Maureen looked him up and down, noticing for the first time his expensive suit, his watch, the luxury SUV parked at the curb. "And who are you, young man?" "I'm Santiago Mendoza. Helen raised me since I was a boy." "Ah, yes, the boy from the sofa." Maureen clicked her tongue. "Well, look how you've turned out. A bit different from others who forget who raised them, isn't it?" The dig was as subtle as a brick to the head. "Ladies," I said, finding my voice, "I appreciate the concern, but as my son says, this isn't the time." "Your son?" Maureen raised her eyebrows. "You call him your son, but he isn't yours. He is more my son than the one who was born from me." I interrupted, the words coming out with crystalline clarity. "Because this man flew in a helicopter to rescue me on the day of the fire. He gave me a roof, food, and dignity, while my own flesh and blood closed the door on me and then came skulking around here, staining my name with lies." A silence fell. "A helicopter?" Mrs. Higgins asked, her eyes wide. "A helicopter," Santiago confirmed. "And just so we're clear, I'm going to rebuild this house better than it was with the best of everything. And when it's finished, I'm throwing a housewarming party and inviting the whole neighborhood so they can see that Helen Silva doesn't need to beg for anything from anyone, and especially not from ungrateful sons." The neighbors were speechless. At that moment, I saw movement at the corner of the street. A gray BMW pulled up, Robert. He got out of the car wearing sunglasses and a smart shirt. Victoria was with him in heels, totally unsuitable for walking through rubble. "Damn," I whispered. Santiago followed my gaze. "Perfect," he murmured. "Let the show begin." Robert strode towards us. His expression was hard to read behind the dark glasses. "Mum," he said when he reached me, "I came to see how you were. You didn't answer my messages." The neighbors watched as if this were a live soap opera. "I had nothing to say to you, Robert." "Look about the other day. Perhaps I was a bit harsh. I was stressed with work and so you called me a burden," I challenged him. "And so you closed the door in my face while I was shaking with fear with nowhere to sleep." Victoria stepped closer, placing a hand on Robert's arm. "Helen, don't be so dramatic. Robert just wanted you to find your own solutions instead of being dependent." "Dependent?" My voice rose an octave. Dependent on what, Victoria? On the son whose university I paid for, on the son for whom I bought his first car, on the son for whom I sold the only piece of land I owned to secure his future. Robert took off his glasses. There was something in his eyes. Guilt. Shame. Mum, I didn't... And then, I continued, because 42 years of pent-up frustration were finally finding an outlet. You go around telling people I'm a manipulator, that I asked you for money and refused your help. Blatant lies, Robert. Lies to soothe your own conscience. I never said... Yes, you did, Maureen interjected, savoring every second. Right here to Mr. Patel. You said your mother exaggerates. Robert went pale. Victoria tried to save him. Well, Helen does have a tendency to be a bit intense. Don't you think everyone... Santiago stepped forward. He had that posture of a businessman used to intimidating people. You know what's intense? Mrs. Victoria spending £6,000 a month on spas and clothes, while your mother-in-law cancels her insurance because she can't afford £150. That's intense. Victoria froze. How do you know that? I know a lot of things. Santiago smiled coldly. For example, I know you forbade Robert from helping his mother. I know you invented lies about Helen to drive them apart. I know exactly what kind of person you are. Robert. Victoria tugged at his arm nervously. Let's go. We don't have to put up with this. But Robert was looking at Santiago with a strange expression. How much money do you have? He asked suddenly. The question chilled me. Not, thank you for taking care of my mother. Not, I was wrong, just, how much money do you have? Santiago looked at him with something akin to pity. Enough to take care of the one who took care of me when no one else would. That's all you need to know. With that, he took my hand. Come on, Mum, we're done here. As we walked away towards the SUV, I heard the neighbors' murmurs explode into commentary. I heard Maureen saying, Did you see that? And Mrs. Higgins replying, The fake son turned out to be more of a son than the real one. But what I heard most clearly was Victoria's voice hissing furiously at Robert. See, I told you that sofa scrounger would be trouble. Now it looks like he has money, and your mother will manipulate him so... I didn't hear the rest, because we got into the car. Santiago started the engine in silence. He drove for 3 blocks before he spoke. Are you okay? No, I admitted. But I will be, because now I understand something. What's that? That my 40-year reputation in this neighborhood means less to my son than the opinion of a woman he's known for 5 years. And I need to stop grieving over that and start doing something about it. Santiago smiled. Good, because tomorrow, phase 2 of the plan begins. What is it? A dinner. A very special dinner where Robert and Victoria will reveal exactly who they are in front of everyone with nowhere to hide behind their lies. I looked out the window. The neighborhood where I had lived for 4 decades was disappearing in the rearview mirror. And for the first time since the fire, I didn't feel nostalgia. I felt liberation, because I was ready to stop being the victim of this story and become something Robert never saw coming, the protagonist. The invitation arrived 3 days later. A cream-colored envelope with elegant gold calligraphy. Santiago Mendoza requests the pleasure of your company for a celebratory dinner marking the launch of his new property development, Valley Towers. Friday, 8th November, 8 p.m. Alain Ducasse at the Dorchester dress code. Smart casual Santiago showed me the guest list as we had coffee on the suite's terrace. Robert and Victoria, obviously, but I've also invited 3 of my business partners and their wives. People from my business circle. All of them wealthy, all influential. I want them to witness the show. Why do you need witnesses? I asked. Because what we're going to do isn't just for you and me, Mum. It's so Robert understands that his actions have social consequences, that the people at his level, the level he so desperately wants to be a part of, will know exactly what kind of man he is. He showed me my invitation. It read, Special Guest of Honor, Mrs. Helen Silva. Guest of Honor. Exactly. I'm going to introduce you as the most important person in my life. And Robert will have to sit there and watch the whole world treat you with the respect he denied you. Friday arrived faster than I expected. Santiago took me to the most exclusive salon in Mayfair hair, makeup, manicure. I felt like Cinderella being prepared for the ball. Sonia from Harrods returned with a dress. When I saw it, I almost cried. It was a deep wine color made of pure silk, with three-quarter sleeves and a cut that flattered my figure without being ostentatious. It was elegant, dignified. With it came low, delicate heels and an embroidered shawl that made me feel like the distinguished ladies I saw in magazines. £2,000, Sonia whispered when I saw the price tag. Santiago, this is too much. Nothing is too much for tonight, Mum. You are going to walk into that restaurant looking like the queen you are, and everyone will know it. At 7:30 p.m., Santiago came to get me. He was in a navy blue suit, silk tie, gold cufflinks. He looked like he'd stepped off the cover of a business magazine. You look beautiful, Mum, he said, his eyes shining. The Dorchester restaurant was in Mayfair with 3 Michelin stars and a 3-month waiting list. But when your Santiago Mendoza doors open, we entered and the manager greeted us personally. Our table was in a private area surrounded by windows overlooking an internal garden. There were 9 places set. 5 were already occupied. Santiago's partners and their wives. I recognized one of them from the news Arthur Sterling, owner of a hotel chain. His wife, Monica, wore a diamond necklace that probably cost more than my house had. Helen, Santiago introduced me, his voice clear and strong. These are my partners and friends, Arthur and Monica Sterling Javier, and Fiona Cardenas Richard and Diana Munoz. They all greeted me with genuine politeness, with respect, as if I were someone important. It's an honor to meet you, Mrs. Silva, Arthur said, shaking my hand. Santiago never stops talking about you. He says you're the most important woman in his life. Before I could reply, I heard voices at the entrance. Robert and Victoria had arrived. She wore a tight black dress with a plunging neckline and red stilettos, overdressed for a business dinner. Robert was in a gray suit, but looked uncomfortable. His eyes scanned the room, assessing, calculating who was who. His gaze found me. He stopped abruptly. His expression was one of total shock. He clearly hadn't expected to see me there. Santiago stood up and went to greet them with a perfect corporate smile. Robert, Victoria, so glad you could make it. Come in, come in. He guided them to the table. Robert walked like a robot. Victoria shot me a venomous look as she passed. Santiago made the general introductions. When he got to me, his tone changed, becoming warmer, more personal. And this, he placed a hand on my shoulder, is Mrs. Helen Silva, my mother. The silence lasted 3 seconds. Your mother? Arthur looked confused. I thought you said your biological mother abandoned you. And she did. Santiago kept his hand on my shoulder. But Helen adopted me when I was 9. She gave me food when I was hungry, a roof when I had nowhere to sleep, and education when no one else believed in me. She is my mother in every way that matters. Monica smiled at me tenderly. What a beautiful story. You must be very proud of him. I am, I said, finding my voice. I always have been. Robert and Victoria sat in silence. Robert stared at his plate. Victoria fidgeted with her water glass, clearly uncomfortable. The dinner began. The conversation flowed. Santiago talked about his new project, 3 luxury residential towers in the Devonshire coast, a $100 million investment apartment starting at $4 million. Arthur was interested. Santiago, Victoria interrupted in a sickly sweet voice. We didn't know Helen would be here. What a surprise. The tone wasn't pleasant surprise. It was irritated surprise. Why would it be a surprise? Santiago returned her look. I said I was introducing someone important. Who else would it be but my mother? It's just that... Victoria forced a laugh. Well, technically, she isn't your mother. I mean, not officially. Fiona Cardenas frowned. I'm sorry, I don't understand. What Victoria is trying to say, Robert spoke for the first time, his voice tense, is that Santiago isn't Helen's biological son. I am her biological son, he added, as if that was the only thing that mattered. An awkward silence fell over the table. Ah, said Richard Munoz slowly. So you're Santiago's brother? Not exactly. Robert cleared his throat. I'm the real son. Santiago is… Well, my mother helped him when he was a boy, but… Santiago cut him off, his voice like steel. When this mother lost her house in a fire, you closed the door in her face. Or am I mistaken? All eyes turned to Robert. That was a misunderstanding. Robert started to sweat. I was under a lot of stress, and so you told her there was no room for a burden like her, Santiago pressed. And so you let your wife call her dramatic and manipulative. Victoria went white. Santiago, I don't know what Helen has told you, but… She hasn't told me anything. Santiago took out his phone. She didn't have to. I hired professional investigators, and I found out exactly what kind of person you are, Victoria, and what kind of man you've allowed Robert to become. He placed the phone on the table and pressed play. Victoria's voice filled the private dining room. Robert, I've told you 1,000 times. Your mother is a professional manipulator. The guests' faces changed from curiosity to shock to revulsion. The audio continued every poisonous word, every lie, every manipulation. When it ended, no one spoke. Robert's head was bowed. Victoria was trembling with rage. This is a trap, Victoria hissed. You brought us here to humiliate us. No. Santiago put his phone away. I brought you here to show you a mirror, so you could see what I see, what everyone here now sees. Monica touched my hand. Mrs. Silva, I'm so sorry. No one should have to go through something like this. Thank you, my dear, I said softly. Arthur looked at Robert with barely disguised contempt. Is it true you left your mother in the street after she lost her home? Robert opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. It's complicated. No. My voice came out clear and firm. It's not complicated. It's simple. I gave you everything for 42 years. I gave you my youth, my money, my unconditional love, and the first time in my life I needed you, you closed the door, because your wife told you to, and you chose to believe her instead of me. Mom, I raised my hand. I am not your mother anymore, Robert. Not in the way that matters, because being a mother isn't just about giving birth. It's about being there, about caring, about protecting. And I did all of that for you. But you did none of it for me when it mattered. Tears were streaming down my face, but I didn't wipe them away. I let everyone see them. Santiago, I continued, this man who doesn't share my blood but shares my heart came for me in a helicopter. He gave me a roof, dignity, respect. He is my son, the only one that matters. Santiago's eyes were also moist. Victoria stood up abruptly. We are not staying here to be humiliated. Let's go, Robert. But Robert didn't move. He was staring at the table as if all the memories were hitting him at once. Do you remember, I said to him softly, when you were 7 and had scarlet fever, I spent 3 nights without sleep, caring for you, praying to God not to take you. And when you got better, you promised me that when you grew up, you would take care of me the same way. Do you remember that promise, son? A tear rolled down his cheek. Mom, I'm releasing you from that promise, I said. You don't owe me anything anymore. But I don't owe you anything either. We're even. Robert, let's go. Victoria pulled his arm. This time he stood up, but before he left, he looked at me one last time. I'm sorry, he whispered. I am too, I replied. I'm sorry you're not the man I thought you would be. They left their footsteps echoing on the marble floor, leaving a heavy silence behind them. Diana broke the silence. You are an incredible woman, Mrs. Silva. Few would have such strength. It's not strength, I admitted. It's survival. You learn to survive when you have no other choice. Santiago raised his wine glass. A toast, he said. To the mothers who choose us, to the families we build, not the ones we're given, and to the dignity that no one can take from us. Only we ourselves can surrender it. Everyone raised their glasses. To Helen, they said in unison, and for the first time in weeks, I smiled. A real complete smile, because although I had lost a son that night, I had gained something far more valuable, my self-respect. But Santiago still had one more card to play, something he hadn't told me, something that was going to change everything and teach Robert the hardest lesson of all. Dessert arrived after Robert and Victoria had left a sticky toffee pudding with vanilla ice cream, but I could barely eat. My heart was beating too fast. The conversation at the table had changed. It was no longer formal and corporate. It had become more intimate, more real. "Santiago," said Javier Cardenas, dabbing his mouth with his napkin. "That was probably the most uncomfortable, but also the most honest dinner I've attended in years. I'm sorry if I made you all feel awkward." Santiago looked genuinely abashed. "Don't apologize." Monica Sterling shook her head. "We needed to see that. We all need reminding of what's truly important in life. My own mother is in a care home because I've been too busy to look after her. I'm calling her first thing tomorrow." Arthur nodded. "It's easy to get lost in the money, the deals, and keeping up appearances. But at the end of the day, the only thing that matters is who was there for you when you had nothing." Santiago looked at me. "That's why I wanted to make this public, Mum. Not just to humiliate Robert, but to remind him and to remind myself what loyalty means, what a real family means." There was a moment of comfortable silence. Then Santiago took a deep breath. "But there is something else I need to share tonight. Something I haven't even told Mum Helen yet." I turned to him surprised. "What is it, son?" Santiago took an envelope from his suit jacket. It was made of thick paper sealed with a red wax stamp. "This," he placed it on the table in front of me, "is something I've been working on for 3 weeks. Since before the fire, actually, but recent events have only confirmed that it's the right thing to do." "Santiago, you're scaring me." "Don't be scared." He smiled softly. "Quite the opposite." He broke the seal and took out several documents. He unfolded them carefully and showed them to me. The letterhead read, "Application for Adult Adoption." I gasped. "What? What is this?" "It's the formal application for you to legally adopt me, Mum. I know it's unusual for an adult to be adopted, but in special cases where a clear pre-existing parental relationship can be documented, the law allows it. I've hired the best family law solicitors in the country." Tears began to fall before I could stop them. "Son, I always wanted it to be official." His voice wavered slightly. "I've always wanted to be able to say legally, this is my mother. Not just in my heart, but legally before God and the law and the whole world. I want your surname to be my surname. I want it so that when they fill out medical forms and ask for next of kin, your name is there. I want everything I've built, everything I am, to be legally tied to you. But Santiago, you already have a surname, Mendoza, your biological father's name. A father I never knew, a man who got my mother pregnant and disappeared. That surname means nothing to me." He took out another document. "This is a deed poll application to change my name from Santiago Mendoza Ruiz to Santiago Silva Mendoza. Your surname first, as it should be." I couldn't speak. I just wept. The others at the table were emotional too. I saw Diana discreetly dabbing her eyes. "And there's more." Santiago took out a third document. "This is my updated will. I want you to know what it says, Mum, because it directly involves you." "Santiago, I don't need to know about your will." "You do, because Robert needs to know." That made me stop. "What do you mean?" Santiago looked at the guests. "Forgive my frankness, but this is important. My current net worth is valued at approximately $50 million companies, properties, investments. It's a lot of money." Arthur let out a low whistle. "I didn't realize you were at that level, Santiago." "Hard work and good fortune," he shrugged. "But here's the point. In my previous will, I had no direct heirs. The money was to be divided among several charities." "That's noble," Fiona commented. "Yes, but it wasn't right, because I do have family. I have Mum Helen." He looked at me intensely. "According to this new will, when I die, 50% of everything I own goes directly to you, Mum. No strings, no restrictions." "Son, no," I almost shouted. "That's too much I don't need." "It's not about need. It's about deserving." His tone was firm. You invested in me when no one else did. You gave me not just food and shelter, but dignity, hope, a future. This is my return on your investment. But what about the other 50%? Santiago smiled with a certain sadness. That goes to foundations that help homeless children. Children like I was, so that others might have the luck I had of finding a Helen Silva in their lives. Monica applauded softly, and then everyone else joined in. That's beautiful, Santiago, said Arthur. But why tell us all this at this dinner? Because I need witnesses. Santiago looked around the table. Influential witnesses, respected people who can attest to my state of mind, my intentions that this is not an impulsive decision. And why? His expression hardened. Because I need it for when Robert comes calling, and he will come calling, so that you can confirm that this is real. You think he'll come back? Asked Richard. I know he will. Santiago picked up his phone and showed them the screen. He's already started texting. Look. Leaning over, I saw the string of messages from Robert. Santiago, can we talk? I think you've misunderstood some things. My mother is important to me. I was just confused. How much exactly are you investing in the new project? The last message said it all. It wasn't about me. It was about the money. He heard $100 million, and his mind started calculating. It's so obvious, Javier murmured. So predictable. That's why I need you all to know the truth. Santiago stood up. When Robert comes to you and asks you about this dinner, about my relationship with Mum Helen, about my financial situation, I need you to tell him exactly what you saw and heard. No sugarcoating, no diplomacy. The plain truth. Count on it, Arthur said, also standing. He extended a hand to me. Mrs. Silva, it's an honor to meet such an extraordinary woman. And Santiago, my boy, if you ever need partners for any project, you call me. Any man who treats his mother like this deserves my respect and my money. The others nodded in agreement. The dinner ended an hour later. Each couple said goodbye to me with genuine hugs, with promises to see each other again with an admiration I didn't feel I deserved, but accepted with gratitude. When we were finally alone, Santiago and I in his car on the way back to the hotel, I let out everything I had been holding in. Why did you do all that? I cried. The adoption, the will, the witnesses. It's too much, son. It's not too much. He was driving slowly, carefully. It's the minimum. Mum, you sold your only plot of land in the Surrey Hills to pay for my university. 40,000 pounds, that was your safety net. You spent it on me. Because I loved you. Because I believed in you. Exactly. And now I believe that you deserve security. That you deserve to know that you will never, ever be alone or unprotected again. He stopped at a red light and looked at me. If something happens to me tomorrow, I want to die knowing that I left you protected. That my life had meaning because I gave back even a fraction of what you gave me. But 50% of your estate, son, that's a fortune. $25 million. He nodded. More or less. And every penny comes with my blessing. Spend it on travel, on fine clothes, on helping others, on whatever you want. Because that money may have my name on it, but it has your heart imprinted on every note. I couldn't answer. I just cried. The light turned green. Santiago kept driving. And about Robert, he said after a moment. He's going to call, probably tomorrow. He'll want to fix things. He'll say he's sorry that Victoria manipulated him, that he's always loved you. And what do you want me to do? I want you to do what your heart tells you. He glanced at me. But I also want you to understand something, Mum. People don't really change unless they lose something important. Robert has never lost anything. He's always had your unconditional love. He's always known you'd come back. That's why he allowed himself the luxury of treating you badly. So I should punish him? No, you should teach him. There's a difference. Punishment is revenge. Teaching is tough love. And sometimes the greatest love we can give is to let someone face the consequences of their own actions. We arrived at the hotel. Santiago parked, but neither of us got out. On Monday, he said, I'm filing the adoption papers. If you sign Mum in about 6 weeks, we will officially be mother and son under the law, and your name will appear on all my documents, my updated birth certificate, everything. Are you sure about this, Santiago? I've never been more sure of anything in my life. He took my hand. You saved me when I was 9. Now let me save you, not just with money or houses, but by giving you the title you always deserved. My mother, legal official undeniable. We hugged there in the hotel car park, and for the first time in my life, I understood what it really meant to have a son. It wasn't who came from your womb. It was who chose to stay, who chose to love you, who chose to honor you. And I had the blessing of raising that kind of son, even though I didn't know it until I lost everything, and he was the only one who came back to find it all for me. But Santiago was right about Robert. The next day my phone rang, and when I saw the name on the screen, I knew the final act of this story was about to begin. The phone rang at 9 a.m. on Saturday. Robert. I let it ring 4 times before answering. Mom? His voice sounded tired, hoarse. I need to see you, please. What for, Robert? To talk. To apologize properly. Not by text, not over the phone. In person, as it should be. There was something in his tone that made me hesitate. Was it genuine or another performance? I don't know if I'm ready for... Please, Mom, I'm begging you. Give me one chance to explain for you to understand what really happened. Santiago was in front of me at that moment, having breakfast in the suite. I motioned to him, asking what to do. He scribbled on a napkin. Say yes. Tell him to come to the hotel. I want to be here. All right, I said finally. Come to the Dorchester, Suite 1804, at 11 o'clock. You're staying there. The surprise in his voice was genuine. Yes, Robert. Santiago has had me here since the day of the fire. Silence. Then, okay, I'll be there. Thank you, Mum. He hung up. Santiago put down his coffee cup. Right. Now listen to me very carefully, Mum. What's going to happen today will be difficult, but you need to be strong. Can you do that? What do you think will happen? I think Robert will come with a prepared speech. He will cry. He will blame Victoria for everything. He will say he's realized his mistakes, and some of that might even be true. But Mum, he took my hands, you need to watch not only what he says, but what he asks. The truth will be in the questions. At 11 o'clock sharp, there was a knock on the door. Santiago opened it. Robert stood on the other side alone without Victoria. He was wearing jeans and a casual shirt, not his usual business attire. He looked younger like this, more vulnerable, like the boy he used to be. Come in. Santiago stepped aside. Robert entered, looking around. The huge windows, the elegant furniture, the fresh flowers. His expression was one of amazement mixed with something else. Envy. Mom. He walked over to me and knelt. Literally knelt where I was sitting on the sofa. Forgive me. Please forgive me. Tears were streaming down his face. They looked real. Robert. No, let me speak. I need to say this. He took a deep breath. I've been a fool. A selfish, blind fool. I let Victoria poison me against you. I let her make me believe horrible things that weren't true. And when you needed me most, I failed you in the worst possible way. His hand reached for mine, took it. It was trembling. After the dinner last night, I couldn't sleep. Victoria was furious, shouting about how Santiago humiliated us, but I couldn't stop thinking about your face, your words, about how I told you that you were a burden. He sobbed. How could I have said that to you? How could I have closed that door? How could you? My voice came out harder than I intended. Because I'm weak, he admitted. Because I've always been weak. You were strong for both of us. You worked double shifts, sold your land, sacrificed over and over, and I just took. I never asked what you needed. I never stopped to think if you were okay. I just assumed you would always be there, unconditional, no matter how I treated you. Santiago remained standing by the window, observing everything without a word. And when I met Victoria, Robert continued, she made me feel important, successful, like I was finally someone. But the price for that was pushing you away. She has issues, Mum. Issues with her self-esteem, with control. She needs to be the center of everything. And I was so stupid that I chose to please her instead of honoring you. And now, I asked, what's changed? Last night, he looked me in the eye. Last night, I saw what I lost. I saw how Santiago treats you. I saw the respect in those businessmen's eyes when they spoke to you. I saw the dignity that I took from you, and I realized that I've lost my mother, not to the fire, but to my own stupidity. He fell silent, waiting for my response. I didn't know what to say. It all sounded so sincere. But Santiago's words echoed in my head. Watch not only what he says, but what he asks. Robert, I said carefully, I appreciate your apology, I really do. But words are easy. Actions are what count. I know. That's why I came to offer you something. He got to his feet. I want you to come and live with me, not as a temporary guest, as my mother. I can have an annex built onto the house, a whole separate area for you with your own entrance, your own kitchen, your own space, your privacy but close by. And Victoria? Santiago asked from his place by the window. Robert glanced at him. Victoria will have to accept it. It's my mother, my house, my decision. Have you told her you were coming here? Santiago pressed. A pause that was just a little too long. Not exactly. What does that mean? I asked. It means she doesn't know. We had a terrible fight last night. I told her I needed time to think. I stayed in a hotel. I came straight from there. Santiago crossed his arms. So you haven't broken up with her. You haven't told her things are going to change. You've just run away. It's complicated, Santiago. We've been together for 5 years. I can't just... But you can just shut the door in your mother's face at her lowest moment. Santiago's voice didn't rise, but it was sharp as glass. That wasn't complicated. That was instant. Robert paled. You're right. You're absolutely right. But I'm here now, aren't I? I'm trying to fix it. Or you're trying to secure a seat at the table. Santiago took a step forward. Because let's be honest, Robert. Last night you heard numbers. $100 million in investment. $50 million in assets. And now you come with offers of annexes and private spaces. That's not why. No. Santiago took out his phone. Then explain these messages you sent me last night. He read them aloud. How much exactly are you investing in the new project? Do you have partners, or is it your own capital? Are the Valley Towers your only active development? Robert said nothing. You didn't ask how Mum Helen was, Santiago continued. You didn't ask if she needed anything. You didn't ask how you could help. You asked about money, about investments, about opportunities. I work in finance, Santiago. It's normal for me to have a professional curiosity. Don't play the fool. The words sounded harsh coming from Santiago. You know exactly what you're doing. You came because you realized the sofa scrounger now has more money than you, and that your mother, the one you scorned, is now connected to that money and you can't stand it. That's not true. Robert stood up. I came because I realized my mistake, because I want my mother back. You want her back. Santiago laughed without humor. Or do you want to make sure that when she inherits from me, you're in the picture? The silence that followed was deafening. Robert looked at me. Mum don't believe him. He's trying to drive us apart. He wants to keep you all to himself. No, I said, and my voice sounded firmer than I expected. I don't believe you, Robert. He froze. What? Santiago is right. I stood up. You didn't ask how I am. You didn't ask if I'm sleeping well, if I'm eating, if the nightmares from the fire still wake me up at night. You asked about money. Mom, And look at this. I walked to the table where I had left my phone. Last night after the dinner, you sent me one message. Just one. I found the message and read it aloud. Mom, is it true Santiago is leaving you something in his will? How much I need to know so I can help you plan? I looked him directly in the eye. You didn't say I'm sorry. You didn't say I'm ashamed. You said, how much? That is your question. That is always your question. I was worried he was manipulating you. Me manipulating her. Santiago laughed bitterly. Mate, you've got it all backwards. But you know what? I'll do something. I'll give you exactly what you came for. Information. He walked to his briefcase and took out the adoption documents. He placed them on the coffee table. "This is a legal adoption request. Mom Helen is officially adopting me. I am changing my surname to include hers, and yes, she is in my will for 50% of everything I own." Robert's eyes widened. He did the quick maths in his head. I saw it. $25 million. But, Santiago continued, "There's something you should know. That money comes without you. It comes with a condition. The condition is that Mum Helen never again has to beg for love. Never again has to wonder if she is a burden. Never again has to knock on doors that should be wide open for her." "Santiago, wait." "No, you wait." Santiago stepped closer to him. "Your whole life your mother gave you everything. And now that someone else is giving her something, you come running. Not for her. For you. For fear of losing out. For fear of being left out." "I love her," Robert shouted. "I love my mother." "Do you love me?" I asked, and my voice broke. "Do you love me, son?" "Yes, with all my heart." "Then tell me." Tears were streaming down my face. "Why does it feel like you only just rediscovered me? Why does it feel like I'm only valuable to you now that Santiago has put a value on me first?" Robert opened his mouth, then closed it. He had no answer, because the truth was obvious, painful, undeniable. He had rediscovered me not out of love, but out of fear of losing an inheritance that was never his to begin with. "Go home, Robert," I said softly. "Go to your house, to your wife, to your life, and think long and hard about who you want to be, because the man you are right now is not the man I raised. Mom, please, I am giving you the same choice you gave me." My voice was steady now. "There is no room for you here right now, not in the way you want. Not until you can come without a calculator in your hand, without questions about wills and inheritance, just with a truly sorry heart." Robert looked at me for a long moment. I saw the mask fall. I saw reality hit him. I saw him understand that he had lost everything, not the money, me. He left without another word. The door clicked shut behind him, the same soft click as the door he had closed in my face on the day of the fire. The difference was, this time I was the one closing it. And for the first time in my life, I didn't feel guilty for setting a boundary. I felt free.